Last night, both of the presidential campaigns offering competing visions for the economy. Joe Biden speaking in Scranton, Pennsylvania at a CNN town hall, and President Trump speaking in Wisconsin. Joining us now is Senator Chris Coons. He is a Democrat from Delaware. Senator Coons, what is the main difference that we heard last night from the two campaigns?
Well, Kevin, there was a stark contrast in both tone and substance between Donald Trump's rally, President Trump's rally in Wisconsin, and former Vice President Biden's rally in Scranton. The Scranton rally was socially distanced, folks wearing masks, was calm, was one where Joe Biden talked about fighting for America's veterans, supporting our first responders, and putting forward a concrete plan for how he will reduce taxes on the working class, on the middle class of America, and raise taxes on the very wealthiest corporations, the very wealthiest Americans, as a way to get us out of this pandemic and help recover our economy. Donald Trump went on a rambling rant in Wisconsin where, frankly, it's hard to know exactly what his proposals are, but he's insisting that he will continue on giving tax breaks to the very wealthiest Americans and to the very most profitable corporations. So I thought it was a sharp contrast between Wall Street and Park Avenue and Scranton. This was a contrast between a candidate whose focus is the stock market and the grocery market, between someone who lives in Trump Tower or at a golf outing, a golf course, and someone who's grown up in Scranton and Claymont and understands the needs and concerns of working Americans.
Well, Senator, let me dig deeper here, because specifically as it relates to fiscal stimulus, I mean, there's so much pressure. So many folks on Main Street are just really in dire need of there being more fiscal stimulus. Now, the Democratic proposal that passed several months ago doesn't appear likely to get Republican votes. And then you've got the skinny version that Leader McConnell put out. That doesn't appear likely to move the needle either. Are you confident that there still is a chance for fiscal stimulus ahead of the election?
I'm going to keep working, Kevin. I've been talking with my colleagues, both Democrats and Republicans, about what we can do to close this gap. But frankly, Majority Leader McConnell in the Senate hasn't been a part of these negotiations. And without some movement by either the Republican majority in the Senate or by President Trump's Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, I think it'll be very difficult for there to be a closing of this significant gap. Speaker Pelosi, speaking on behalf of the House, that several months ago passed a $3.5 trillion relief bill that would provide support and relief to small businesses, families, first responders, a very wide range of those in need, has already agreed publicly to come down first to $2.5 trillion, and then to just over $2 trillion. And she and Minority Leader Schumer are waiting for some counter proposal that meets them halfway. The so-called skinny bill, which was just a few $100 billion, left out whole sections of what we need in order for there to be effective relief for middle America, for public employees, for nutrition, and for those going back to school. And my hope is that we can still find some responsible compromise.
Senator, when I talk to Democrats, they say that should Biden win the upcoming election, that there would likely be much more economic stimulus coming even in the first quarter of next calendar year, especially as it relates to infrastructure, and now economists are starting to factor that in terms of their expectations of should Joe Biden win the election. Is that something that you hear? I mean, infrastructure has been something that he's talked about for quite some time, but is that going to be one of the major first priorities in a Biden administration?
I do think putting money back into our economy by rebuilding American infrastructure, which is sadly antiquated in a lot of different ways, our bridges and tunnels and roads and highways, that's something that would both help put people back to work, stimulate our economy, and if we build resilient infrastructure that makes us better prepared for the hurricanes and wildfires and natural disasters that we're seeing across our country, we could also begin to deal with addressing climate change. I was encouraged to see that the hundreds of businesses that make up the Business Roundtable just this past week recognized climate change is real and we have to do something about it. So I think this is one way that Joe Biden can help us build back better, make a stronger economy and a more resilient economy as we come out of this pandemic next year.
Manufacturing is just so much at the forefront of these conversations. They were getting whacked before the pandemic. They've obviously taken another hit, the manufacturing sector, during the pandemic, particularly on the issue of manufacturing. How do you protect manufacturing jobs so that they don't go overseas to China, so that they don't get influenced by the geopolitical winds of the day?
Kevin, one of the things that many of us in Congress are looking at is how we can onshore manufacturing of critical components of the supply chains that for decades have now gone overseas and often to China. A lot of the bungled federal response in the first few months of this year was around trying to provide PPE or personal protective equipment or badly needed medical devices and other supplies that are mostly made overseas, a lot of it in China. I have a bipartisan bill with Senator Rubio of Florida that would accelerate that onshoring. There's a number of different proposals, but former Vice President Biden, who grew up in manufacturing towns in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, understands what it's going to take to restore support for American manufacturing. We can use the power of the federal government to buy more American-made goods, and we can provide incentives, tax incentives, for those manufacturers who are going to onshore manufacturing and stop providing tax incentives that have been in our code for too long for businesses that offshore manufacturing.
And Senator, it's not just a U.S. versus China competition for jobs. I mean, it's also a geopolitical chess game, as you know. I mean, you've got China trying to make inroads everywhere, including in Africa. And it was just this week that the Treasury Department had issued sanctions on a firm in Cambodia that was posing as a manufacturing company, but actually was trying to build a military base. I mean, how do you rein in China? How would a President Joe Biden rein in China from a national security perspective, but also from a competitive economic perspective, should he win the presidency?
Well, Kevin, there's three critical parts to a Biden strategy to confront an aggressive China that has been taking more and more steps globally to be directly competitive with us. We actually had a hearing on this topic on the Foreign Relations Committee yesterday about China's expansionist activities in Central and South America. First, it begins with strengthening the United States, with reinvesting in our own manufacturing, education, and bringing us together as a country so that we are more of a functional, vibrant democracy so that our model continues to be attractive to the world. Second, it's re-engaging with our allies. Some of our most vital allies around the world, from Canada to the UK to Germany to South Korea to Japan, have faced withering insults and attacks from President Trump, who's either demanded they pay more for their own security or has imposed on them punishing tariffs that have distanced us from some of our core allies. Re-engaging with our allies and reuniting the democracies of the world to jointly confront China's innovative mercantilism is the next step. And then third, I expect Joe Biden as president, someone with decades of experience in foreign policy, will re-engage with the multilateral institutions of the world, not just NATO and Europe, but in the Asia Pacific. There are ways in which we can and should strengthen our standing in the world and confront China on everything from IP theft to their actions in the South China Sea, to their human rights violations against the Uyghurs in Xinjiang province and their steps in Hong Kong to constrain that little island that has for long enjoyed more freedom than anywhere else in China. All of these are steps Joe Biden as president would understand how to take, and they're in sharp contrast to the ways that President Trump has coddled dictators, has distanced us from our vital allies, and has used the wrong tools in trying to confront China.
Senator, I know you're up for re-election and you're focused on your re-election efforts, but I do have to ask you, as someone who has such a close personal relationship with the Democratic presidential nominee, Joe Biden, would Secretary of State be a position in his cabinet that you would consider accepting should you be offered it?
Kevin, there is a lot of work to do in the world. There are so many different places where the United States has receded in its reach and its engagement, and I would be honored to play some role in helping to strengthen America's place in the world. Joe Biden's going to have a lot of very qualified and experienced people from whom he may choose his senior team. I look forward to doing whatever I can to help a Biden-Harris administration strengthen our place in the world and to build back better our global leadership, whether that's in the Senate, which is what I expect will most likely happen, or whether I got that opportunity to serve alongside him. It'd be the honor of a lifetime.
Including in the cabinet. I just want to, it sounds like you're open to that.
I am open to that, Kevin, yes. But I expect he's going to have many other highly qualified folks from whom he can choose.